and Westcare, they have the foster carers, and at the moment we have Sally as well as Maya, right? Maya, M-A-J-A, right? And I'm pretty sure that your manager, Jill, will be listening as well, because she told me that she will be listening. So just be careful, don't say anything against her.
Welcome, ladies.
So,
welcome to 979 FM.
Good morning, thank you.
And that was Maya. And hello, how are you, Sally?
Oh, it's Wednesday. We're feeling good.
We're feeling good. So, Sally and Maya, they're from Westcare, the foster carers, but probably as you will read on the local paper, they are desperate for foster carers, for caregivers as they call them. So, but we've got some questions. But to remind our listeners as well that they can give us a call if they need to ask you some questions, which if they want to do that, you can call us on 9747 8500. So let's start. What is your role as a with Westcare? I guess you come under the Westcare still, and probably few knows that.
Yeah. As some of the community members might be aware, Melton Foster Care is a program within Salvation Army Westcare. We are located on 38 Station Road in Melton South, and the head office is in Devonshire Road in Sunshine. We are a foster care agency that consists of 25 foster carers currently, and we have 4 case managers within our team. My role is I'm a team leader and have been for the last 3 years, but have been with Melton Foster Care for the last 8 years. Sally joined our team last year just before Christmas, and we have our manager Jill Wayne with us too. We currently have 26, 27 children with us, placed with us, but the demand is much higher. We have, just in the last couple of weeks, turned away around 25 children that could not be placed with because we don't have enough foster carers.
Okay.
What happens to those kids?
They either get referred to different agencies, usually to a different region, which would mean that they would be placed further away from their families, and also might miss on school or travel long distances to get to school, or they are placed in residential care.
Mm.
Yeah.
And sometimes these children bounce around from carer to carer until a long-term placement can be found. So sometimes we look at 10 placements in 1 year for one child, which is a lot, and it's very unsettling for them.
Yeah.
Yes.
I find that particularly troubling.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is troubling. That's why at 979 FM we're going to try and help find more carers and for these people, because I don't think it is fair for the children themselves that they'll travel from one house to another. I think it's emotionally distressing that they've left their parents or their primary, or they used to be their primary carers, and probably they've lost their friends at school, right? Probably their family, they can't get in contact with their family for legal matters. So then that's where Westcare comes in. Comes in and say, okay, we need to find them a placement for these children, and so and if you've got 100 kids, I don't know how many kids do you have at the moment. Like
we currently have 26 children within our care with our carers. Yeah.
So and from those 26, if there's only 4 caregivers, I mean you can't place them all those to those 4 caregivers, because I believe that there is laws as well of how to place, and so what is the process of placing a child, say from their parents, right, to a caregiver?
So with our, to become a foster carer, each foster carer goes through the quite lengthy process, 3 to 6 months to become a carer. They have trainings and assessment. Trainings goes over four Saturdays, 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how it's run and how many carers attend. And then there's an assessment process that can be done over 3 to 5 home visits. Then the report is written and the carers are presented to the panel, which consists of members from the community, from Westcare and Department of Health and Human Services. And once the caregiver is approved, then it's really careful matching process to place appropriate child within a family. Some carers take one child only. Some carers, we are quite fortunate to have several carers that can take sibling groups of up to 4 children.
Yeah, in fact, I was going to ask you, so most families nowadays, they have more than one child.
Yep.
Right? So most of the cases is that if they're going to foster someone, they're going to foster, if there's 2 kids, they're going to foster the 2 kids. So did you have any cases that they'll split them? One child will go on one carer and one child will go on another carer?
Yeah. We try to keep siblings together, and I have to say that Westcare has been pretty good in keeping siblings together. However, if they need to be separated, then we at least try to keep them within the same agency, so that we have 2 or 3 of our caregivers having, at the moment we have a family of 4 children, one, with 3 different foster carers. So at least that way we know that the children can be in contact between themselves. We try to make it as normal and natural as possible. Carers will catch up on the weekend, and children will see each other even if parents don't attend access.
Now, as a case manager, right? So basically, you'll see a lot of kids that emotionally distressed, I'll say. So especially if they lost their parents and they went to a new family, all of a sudden, they're with this new family, and how your agency support those children, because I think it's a very emotional process. I mean, I can't see myself going through it. I mean, even talking about it, it gets a little bit emotionally myself.
So our role as case managers is really diverse, and we have days that are completely different to the day before. Most of what we do is around supporting our foster carers to work with the kids in their placements and to put those supports in place and advocate for what those kids need to make a placement functional. And whether that's counselling, various sorts of therapy, after-school activities, all those sorts of things, we try and keep their life as normal as possible, as well as giving lots of support to our carers so they can take care of the kids.
So if say for example there's a listener now and they say, oh yeah, I'm interested, and hopefully there'll be someone, and you're mentioning schooling and books and clothes, do Westcare or someone help them financially, the caregivers, or just I'll give you the child and that's it, see you later when we'll need you to get the child back?
No, all the carers receive what we call caregiver reimbursement, so that's to basically assist them with helping this child to go to school, with clothing, with food, with utility bills. It mostly covers all the costs included and involved to look after a child. On top of those, there are several other payments that carers receive to cover, as I said, medical expenses, educational expenses, camps, outings. So we try to reimburse the carers for the cost that's involved as much as we can.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yes. So of course, I mean, if you're going to be a caregiver, it's you're going to be a loving family or parent or whatever. So and who is eligible to be a caregiver? Is there a criteria of how to pick up who can be and who cannot be?
Pretty much anyone who is over 18 and can be either single or in a reasonably stable relationship, married, de facto, can be a foster carer. They go through, they have to have a clear police check and working with children's check. Some of the caregivers have had some issues in the past that would show up on their police check, but that is discussed and at discretion of a manager to approve them to become foster carers, even though they've had adverse police checks. So.
Okay, so if
obviously those charges have to be minimal.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, how does that work? Do you take them out of the care, or you'll try and settle them back in, or how? You know what I'm trying to say. Say because especially if it's a teenager, sometimes there can be we we all been teenagers. So.
This is a really situational
It
question. It honestly really depends on the situation, and we always have rocky patches with all of our kids in care. It's really difficult for them. They're not with their families. They're with strangers, you know. So we do what we can to offer that support. So sometimes it's mediation. Sometimes it's putting them with another carer for a couple of days just to ease the situation down. We do a lot of talking with our kids and with our carers just so we can make sure that we keep a lid on that sort of stuff and talk about it openly and honestly so that we don't get to that point where something's not working anymore.
Yes, so I think
I have a question for you. What's the is there an inverted commas average inverted commas length of time that a child is in foster care?
Well, there's nothing really average. You know, it could be anywhere from one night to
18 years.
Yeah.
wow.
So if I understand you right, the thought to some people of a commitment of years and years might be beyond them.
Yep.
But they could say, I can do 1 or 2 nights, I could do a weekend for somebody.
Yep.
Then that would be the kind of person that you like as a foster carer?
Ideally, we see foster care as a temporary care, so
Yeah.
anything between 1 night to 3 to 6 months.
Right.
However, due to legislation and legalities around foster care, some of the children are not able to go back home to their parents, and there is no kinship options for them, so they stay in foster care just by default, I guess. So some of the carers we have some carers that are happy to offer only respite on the weekend because both carers work full time, they have their own children, they have their own lives. Some of the carers are open to do things, on a temporary basis, 3 to 6 months. However, some of the carers get the child there for the weekend, but over time, because they can't return home or to their extended family, they are still carers and have those kids in care 6-7 years later. It really depends on a child and a circumstances around the child.
Because it has to be fluid, doesn't it?
It has to be.
It has to be.
That's what we try to achieve. That's why we really don't want to see those kids knocked back when we receive that referral. We don't want to say no because we know that it's across the region. Generally, the problem is across the board. It's not just Melton Foster Care and Westcare that are struggling. All the other agencies, I believe, are struggling with placements and lack of carers. And then that means that, little Johnny will go to your house tonight, to my house tomorrow night, and a third person I can't imagine even a child that grows up in a stable family, that would be traumatic. I always think because I'm a mother of 3 children, if one of mine had to go to 3 different houses, to 3 different strangers for 3 nights in a row, that would be traumatic enough, let alone the traumatic past they've had living in with their own family. So that's what we're trying with, having many carers on board would be opportunity to match them better and have a better opportunity to choose from. So these children, at least, yes, they are out of their parents' care, but try to make it as less traumatic as possible. That's our really main goal.
Did you ever had cases like I know? Of course, I'm not going to mention who it was. I know a person that unfortunately his child had to go into a foster care, but because they had no one to foster care him in his area, and this was mainly because of medical issues, so it was a temporary. They had to send him to Adelaide.
We haven't had many kids coming to us from other other states. We did have a child that had to travel to school 75 kilometres every day to go to a completely different suburb on the other end of the town, and that was really hard because that meant that child had to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, sit in the car 6:45, and due to traffic had to be took them around 2 hours to get him to school, and the same on the way back. We do also offer respite and emergency placements for families who don't have any involvement with child protection, but single parent families that don't have any family support or friends support around them, single mums that might need to go to the hospital, the fathers that have different issues in life at time, that they ask for help for their children to be with foster carers for some time until the issue is resolved.
Yeah, so just ask question, right? As regarding the caregivers, right? I guess they'll become very emotional once the child leave their house, especially if they had them say for 1 or 2 years. How do you try and deal with that? I'll say, in my opinion, like if I'll have a child for a year, and then all of a sudden it's like I have to give it back because it's not mine. I'll get a little bit emotional. How do you deal with that?
We try to make sure that we do very scheduled and detailed transitions where kids gradually leave the placement. So it's not just all of a sudden they're going the next day. We try to make sure that they do sleepovers and longer visits with whoever they're going back to, so that we make sure that they are coping well with the transition and the care is getting used to that transition. Some kids go after 6 years, they change placements sometimes, and it's very traumatic all round, and we make sure that as case managers and team leaders, and we try to offer as much support to those carers and the kids as possible. And that also includes things like setting up counselling appointments for our carers and for kids, so that they can talk about all those things and deal with their grief and loss over the child moving on.
And I think, just a last remark, I guess, all the foster carers go into this knowing that this is a temporary care. So none of our foster carers actually go into this thinking they're going to have a child in their care forever.
Now, your contact details, if someone wants to inquire more or find out more how to be a carer.
As I said at the beginning, we are in 38 Station Road. It's a double-storey house with no signs outside. It was
next to the pool.
Next to the swimming pool. And the phone number is 9747-8310.
9747-8310. Thank you. Now, you've requested a song by Billy Idol, so we're going to go for a short break, and then we're going to have Billy Idol, White Wedding, as your request. And that was Westcare, Maya and Sally. Thanks for coming to our show, and hopefully we'll hear good news next time we'll see you.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. Stay with us. We're going to be right back in just a minute.